Hello, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity of being part of ElixirConf, talking about learning paths and the lessons I learned during my career transition from Ruby to Elixir. When I was working as a software engineer at Plataformatec, the company behind Elixir. A little about me, I've been working with software development since 2008. Ruby was not my first language. Before Elixir and Ruby, I worked with PHP, C++, and Java. My academic background is in computer science and computer engineering. And currently, I am an Elixir engineer at the Railroad. Just to give some context, I'm in São Paulo, Brazil. It's almost 9:30. And São Paulo was the same city where Plataformatec had a head office, more specifically in this building in the 4th floor, with a fantastic team working with Elixir, Ruby, and Agile. I worked at Plataformatec for 2 years until the acquiring, and I've done a lot of fun things, including live streamings and tech talks. I participated of 3 live streams with the team and about 13 talks in conference at Brazil. And during that time at Plataformatec, I've learned Elixir, and I had the opportunity of being allocated in the Elixir project at the Railroad, the company I'm still working for. And I've followed multiple learning paths until the moment I reached the enough proficiency, enough fluency in Elixir. However, thinking about those paths, not all of them worked well for me, at least not at the first time. We'll see a little more about that. But first, I would like to start with, to understand a little deep what is a learning path. And starting with the definition, a learning path is described as organized set of learning activities that builds knowledge progressively. So we will start from the basics and going forward until the advanced topics. It's very similar to the new version we have in the Elixir track on exercism. It's a good example of that. And then was my first lesson learned when I was reviewing my Elixir journey. I noticed a clear difference between learning paths and a self-study mode. A learning path is more than just a set of activities. We have a curated content. We have a clear scope, goals, suggested deadlines, not necessarily strict deadlines. And we can also track our progress and see and validate our proficiency. When we are in the self-study mode or in self-learning, it is also about learning a subject, however, without a direct supervision in a self-paced way. It's more, but it's more just it's more than just find the topic and learning that topic, using a couple of resources to study. It also involves the process of find those resources, select the relevant topics, understand the reason to learn that subject, decide when it's the right moment to start, or who can support when you are feeling blocked or you have questions, unsolved questions. For example, learning what is when to use a jump server first before learning the basic syntax of Elixir would not make sense at all, but it might not be something so clear for a beginner, for someone that had not previous contact with what is a programming language. And I'm glad we have a great documentation in the language website, including the list of resources we can use for learning. And we also have great content created by the community to support that process. The Elixir School is very helpful, mainly for those who are not native English speakers. As me, I am a Portuguese speaker, and it helps us. The translated content helps us a lot to reduce the cognitive loads when we are learning a new programming language. And Elixir School was my first open source contribution. It was a super small pull request, but it motivated me to contribute in other open source. Like I lost the fear of doing that. Even working for Plataformatec with Device and other open source projects, and Elixir, of course. Exercism was another great tool to learn code, to practice the Elixir syntax. I'm so thankful for all mentors and for all the reviews. However, when I started the Elixir track, I noticed that the proposed exercises was too complex for me in that moment, because I was still learning and memorizing the syntax and the concepts. Yesterday, Angelica was talking about the changes related to exercism, and I'm really curious to see how it's working now with all the different paths and all the different styles. Like you can have simple exercises just to practice, like pattern matching or something else. But going back to the self-study challenges, I wish I had included these two questions, like reviewing how to learn something and how I could improve my self-study process, my learning process. And more recently, these two books were a game changer for me, opened my mind to these two questions. When we are thinking about learning something properly, we need to have self-discipline, we need to have focus, and we need to have a clear motivation. I study plan is very important too. And we need to review our practice when reading and studying something. And it was the reason that I failed in the first time. I thought that just reading a book would be enough to learn the basic Elixir concepts. And my first attempt to learn Elixir was at Plataformatec during my working hours. We had this study time. And during one of the book club sessions we were reading the Learning Functional Programming with Elixir. And at that same time, I was in other book club. I was reading other technical books. And I was reading the other one from Sandmetz, the Practical Object-Oriented Design. And at the same time, I was working on my first project as a Ruby consultant. I was having a higher cognitive load related to soft skills, including my communication. There was a lot of things going on and a lot of things to be adapted. And in the end of the book club, I forgot everything I learned about Elixir. It's not everything, but most of the content. And this was the second lesson I learned, like after a long time, after that situations, about how important it is to space out your learning. The learning will happen when you sleep. It's when your neural connections in your brain will be consolidated in the long-term memory. Like you studying, you create new connections, and you sleep, you move the connection from short-term memory to the long-term memory. But an important thing is not just like doing it once. After 2 days, we will remember just 25% of what we learned, what we studied. It's known as the forgetting curve. And this is the reason that we need to repeatedly study something to make stronger the memory of it, until it becomes virtually impossible to forget things. It's like keeping the cache refreshed. However, only repetition is not enough. We need to strengthen the retrieval. We need to strengthen the retrieval strength. The retrieval strength will indicate how easy it is to remember something. It's like creating a database index in a field, but in your mind. when you are trying to remember a fact that you know, without extra study, without consulting some documentation, you strengthen that retrieval strength. And more automatically and effortless it will be, according to like how many times you do, more automatically it will be. And you can use some techniques like using elaboration and interleaving the context to help this process, trying to explain, synthesizing, analyzing, merging, applying this new concept to new situations, or connecting with your prior knowledge, forcing your brain to connect the new knowledge with the existing memories. Will help a lot to remember that. Another option is to adopt the retrieval practice, actively trying to remember information to making that knowledge stick in your memory better. Something like, oh, next time we will Google something, it might be worth it first actively trying to remember the syntax, or forcing your brain to think first in that before searching. It's a way of challenging your mind. And another way of challenging your mind is creating self-assessments, like validating how is your knowledge of a few days or of a month. You can use also flashcards. You can use the approach of re-explaining the key ideas in simple terms, explain your thinking out loud. You can use like the rubber duck technique and explain to an object or to someone else. Another important lesson was understanding how focus and diffuse mode works in your brain. And it helped me to also helped not only in the learning process, but also in have a deeper focus on my work tasks, my daily work tasks. The focus mode is activated when you focus your attention on something. It's like locking your mental database table for writing, like you not allowing other process to be executed in your mind. And the diffuse mode is the opposite. It is activated when you relax your attention, it's like unlocking your mental database process. And these two modes are important because in the learning process, because the focus mode will know how to work through familiar problems, how to move along pre-laid pathways in your brain. It's also used to load the difficult subject in your mind before the diffuse mode work. It's like incubing a background job to be processed later. And the diffuse mode will be responsible for these aha insights, and it will help you to understand what you are learning. It will it may connect parts of your brain that may not be connected or not normally connected. It will create like shortcuts to some concepts. But it will happen only when you have true mental breaks, like making a pause to focus on social media or on a video game won't help you. You need like to relax, to play with your pets, to do something else. And another good point about the breaks and the importance. If you are trying to solve a completely new problem, no pre-existing pathways, it can be tough. It can be tough for your focus mode since there's no any pathways for it to use. The focus mode needs this previous pathway to work well. And when I was trying to do a lot of things at the same time, my brain it's not like only me, but in general. And when we are trying to do everything at the same time, our brain will not simply work because of the cognitive overloading, and it will block our learning process. And this is for my fourth lesson. the cognitive load happens when our working memory becomes too full and our brain cannot properly process anything else. And the working memory is one of the 3 types of memories we have. I copied this category from the programmer's brain. The long term will be responsible for store the things like a hard drive, like in comparison with a computer. The short term will act like a cache, and the working memory will be where the actually processing happens. When it is where the thinking happens, where we have the new ideas, the new solutions, is the memory in the space in the memory we use for tracing code, for mental compiling and executing code. And the sad thing is the working memory is only capable of processing between 2 and 6 things at the same time. And now you might be wondering, like, how can we programming with this limit in our minds? Here's where we have this connection between the working memory and the long-term memory. When your long-term memory has stored enough relevant information, you can remember the syntax and abstract concepts, dividing them into chunks, like dividing them in bigger and larger groups. And chunks can be something like, oh, this block of things is a a hard tuple. Oh, okay, this is a recursion. This is a pattern match. Oh, another pipeline. And one chunk means one slot in the short-term memory. So you'll be able to process more data, more code. However, if you don't have enough knowledge in your long-term memory, you need to rely on low-level reading of code, like letters and keywords. It means that instead of reading the code like this, simulating a person that knows the Elixir, the syntax is experienced Elixir programmer, the person may read like, oh, okay, this is a protocol, this is the implementation, we have this model size, and we have this function, and it's implemented for the bit string and a map. And okay, this is calculating the size, not the length. But the person that doesn't know enough the Elixir syntax or any other syntax may read it like this. Okay, this is the keyword for dev protocol. This is the name. The name is size, is in uppercase. The first in camel case. We have this defined as a function block. We have this tag of representing the document. Okay, we need to have a string. It will calculate the size of, not the length of a data structure. We have the def here defining a function. We have the function name, the parents and the argument. But wait, it starts like being overloaded. And wait, where is the function body? Okay, this is a protocol, and then another overloading. Okay, but how do we normally use that, and so on for until that process will be more automatically. When you are learning, it's easy to quickly run out of space in your short-term memory. And one suggestion to improve it is reading coding together with someone with experience in Elixir. In this case, right? It can be applied to any other programming language. And we can also use the strategies from text comprehension to understand the code. We can think about all the related things we have in that domain, like, oh, have you saw that? Have you seen that in other place? Monitoring how the person is understanding the code, showing the relevant parts, and helping the person dive into the where the business logic, like the business rules are, where is the important part, and it can help drawing diagrams, creating questions is a good way of activating our brain. And the more interesting suggestion here is create a short summary about that piece of code and describing as a text. And it might be a good option for a documentation. It might be also a good welcome task for a newcomer. We need to keep in mind that reading code is an important skill. We spend almost 60% of our time reading code than writing. So when mentoring someone that is starting learning a programming language, it's important to teach how to do the code tracing, how to debugging, how to run tests, and other things that it might help to reduce the overload. We can do things like inlining a function, like reducing the indirection of that function. We can replace unfamiliar language constructs, like replacing a pattern match with if else, if the person is more familiar with the if else structure. Drawing diagrams might help you too, and using the state table. But that difficult might be related, like the difficulty in understanding some piece of code can be also be related to code smells in the code base. Code smell normally has a relationship with higher cognitive load. Example, when we have a long parameter list, large models, large functions, a mysterious name. And when we talk about code smells, automatically we think about refactoring. And this is a book that had the catalog. It has a new version. And now Martin Fowler tried to join the object-oriented programming with the functional programming, and it's a good exercise to convert it, like to trying to find the code smells in Elixir database, in Elixir code base. Another way of being better, like improving your reading skills, is reviewing code. And you even with not understanding, it's good thing to do. You can ask question for your knowledge, like asking for the team to support to understand that piece of code. It might be related to a code smell, so questions are all good. It's good to also to use the Git history, navigate throughout the code locally. It's a good way of, it's an opportunity to suggest refactoring documentation. Another practice that I like is the per code review, where the person review like a pull request together with a newcomer. It's good because we have the code with explanation about how the code is used or why it's like that. It's the same thing that we see when we are reading a book or a blog post with the source. We have like explanation about what the code does. And if we are having issues related to working with familiar code, we can use some strategies as adding breadcrumbs to ourselves in the format of comments, indicating why we are visiting that code. We can break a task in smaller chunks. And this is super helpful when we are doing some technique like Pomodoro, or when we know that we won't be able to finish the task in the same day. It's important to really write down the sub goals and see this to-do list to address. And the other option to learning the new syntax and make everything be more fast is writing code. We can use pair programming to support that. We can also have toy apps to play and practice, like have a controlled environment to test a new library, to test a new approach. It's very interesting to have this set of projects. And also count with the community support. We have forums, we have groups on Telegram, newsletters, podcasts. conference meetups. This one is one of the last Elixir meetups in São Paulo. I joined in person. I'm really missing that. I hope next year I can be in person. And conferences are great to all levels normally. And it helps the person to identify what is the basic topic, what is the advanced topic. This is how this photo is from Elixir Brazil, in which Kike was using a Nervous with a live view with an online questionnaire to everyone to activate that dispositive to spread that water in him in the middle of the stage. And the other option, like to be aware of all the news and all the new features, I love to use Twitter for that, and following the hashtag, for instance, my Elixir stats. And all these things require like this process it's a journey. It will require practice and more practice, and we need to try to create a study plan. It might help, but going back to my Elixir learning path, when I really learned Elixir, it was during my working hours. At Plataformatec, we had like many learning paths, and one of them was the Ruby to Elixir transition path. And like it was opportunity to learn new skills and working new projects. We had a guideline, like just to have an idea about what would be the basic topics and the advanced topics. But the implementation was simpler than that. We had each person focus 2 months dedicated to improve our Elixir and Phoenix knowledge. And the good thing was we had the support of the Elixir engineers, including Evelyn. We could use the self-study mode, but with a clear goal and a deadline, because the goal was to learn these new skills to the upcoming projects. And we could also have the option to be part of an internal team working with new features. But I prefer read the books now in the right way. I read again the Learning Functional Programming, and I had the opportunity to review the beta version of Program Phoenix 1.4, and trying to use the exercism again, getting the feedback from the team about the solutions and discussing which approach would be helpful or not. And I complemented also the advanced topics with these 2 books. And overall, it worked well, not only for me. We had the team fully focused on that transition, so not two roles. We had the team support. We had more than one engineer in that transition at the same time. We shared questions, including editor configuration. We sharing the shortcuts, the challenges. We documented suggestions for future newcomers. And we have 18 new engineers in 3 months. And it was a big shift, a big change in the company, because for the first time we had more Elixir engineers than Ruby engineers. And to sync everyone, to connect everyone, we created the engineer chapter. We started testing this format and creating meetings to talk about the general things like performance, GraphQL versus API versus REST, code review, among other things, based on the project needs. It was an important process to share and document knowledge across the teams. But then the company was acquired in the beginning of last year, and Plataformatec closed officially its operations. But after that journey, I think the main lesson I learned was about how to continue learning new things. And my new thing, my new project, my current project is a project called Elixir Lab. We use the stream format, live stream format on YouTube to review books, but I will talk more about that. We hold session. Raquel, Juliana, and I are the hosts for those sessions. And our main goal is to create content for newcomers in Portuguese about Elixir. And we don't have much content in translated content in our language. And it's important for newcomers to reduce the cognitive load. But our dream actually is to organize a workshop like the Rails Girls. In the last edition, we have 100 participants. But the ongoing project is this Elixir Book Club format, reviewing and discussing the existing books in the Elixir community. The first one was learning functional programming with Elixir. We had like about 9 live streams. Is a volunteer project available on YouTube. And the good part of that was having the author commenting in our lives and getting some feedbacks. Thanks, Alice. And the current book is the Programming Phoenix. The lives are available. We notify the users on YouTube and on Twitter. And it's a great opportunity for those who want to learn Portuguese with different accents. So far, we have 4 videos. And the number of subscribers increased even without having this project as a hobby. And my final suggestions about all this process: Learning Path can be an interesting tool to support your Elixir adoption, mainly in a company. This book is great to think about that, like to review all this process. Your code base can support this process too. I have an ebook in partnership with Source Level describing how we can use code review and pull requests to generate this source of knowledge about the company. And as a mentor and our facilitator, we can learn more about learning paths or about how to manage in teams, how to onboarding newcomers, how to manage ourselves. Like how to manage our energy. And these 3 books are great to review the cognitive load and to improve our communication. And as a self-taught and as a mentee, I recommended these 3 books. And I really like the Programmer's Brain. I strongly recommend it. And now we have the Exercismo too. Oh, it's not IO, no longer IO, it's Exercismo.org to practice. And another option is to prepare ourselves to interviews using, for instance, the HackerRank examples. And the final reminder, we know that we have our working lives. We need to study for that, but we also have the world outside work, and we need to have time to relax, to be connected with those things. And all these activities are still limited by our 24 hours in a day. Continuous learning is important, but it's important also to be kind to yourself. We cannot forget that work-life balance matters. One thing that you might want to do is like learn how to learn, like review your learning process, and it can help you to focus on being more adaptable, like how to learn things faster. And keep in mind that you don't need to know everything. Each person will have a different set of skills with their strengths and weaknesses, and we work as a team to support each other. And that's it. Thank you all. I hope to meet in person next year.
Elaine, I saw you sort of quoted a couple of books there. Is there a favorite of yours?
Related to that, like if I have one favorite,
oh, no,
or
I mean, so at the very end you had lots and lots of books, but like throughout the slides, sort of earlier on, I think, for example, you quoted Feline and perhaps another author. Yeah, out of those books earlier on, I suppose, do you have a favorite?
I think for technical things, my favorite now is the programmer's brain. I'm really impressed how our cognitive load process is impacted in all levels. Like when we are beginner, when we are experienced programmer, and the other one I think is the radical candor. It's more related to soft skills and feedbacks and communication. I really like that. It opened my mind to a different set of things.